And then if we shift to intra-ride fueling, and continuing that fuel for the work required idea, we've seen a real change from where fueling was an afterthought, really. If I chat to some of the riders in the last generation, your Christian Van de Vels, Mike Barry's, that generation, they were like just stumbling in the door, totally glycogen depleted. Now we've moved to minimum 60, probably maximum over 200, some people. But surely there is, as we move into kind of individualization, surely we need to have a more nuanced conversation around carbohydrate intake. Surely absorption rates vary from athlete to athlete. Can we measure absorption rates, or what affects absorption rates? Because to my bro science understanding of this, it would matter very little how much fuel I put into the tank. It's how much fuel I'm able to actually use.
Yeah, that's like kind of like a really important question, and this is something like I'm scientifically working on at the moment. But before like we move into that, perhaps just like to give you an example that like fueling a lot always doesn't always make sense, and I'll just give you an example from a race recently on a World Tour level. The rider came to the finish. He reported 120 or just a bit more of carbohydrates per hour. And well, as like what we would perceive, this would be a good fueling, right, for the session. But then when you do the calculations for energy balance, what ended up being was that for calculations for dinner, we're actually showing the rider's suggested intake of carbohydrates as minus 2 grams per kilo.
So the race was, whatever happened, dynamics of the race was, the break went early, the race settled, so he overfueled for it.
Yes. So,
and even to run with that as well, is there, like if I look for what's the adaptation I'm looking to get from the training session, I could surely overfuel and blunt the training response to a zone 1, zone 2 session by overfueling it.
Well, I don't really think there is not that much evidence to suggest, at least on my mind, that intra session fueling will have a massive response on the adaptations. But one thing is for sure, if you basically bulk all the carbohydrates during the session, then this will mean that you will either start the session relatively empty in glycogen, or you will go into the next session relatively empty of muscle glycogen, given the fact that there is not a lot of evidence that there is muscle glycogen sparing with a lot of carbohydrates during exercise.
Okay, interesting. So back into the idea of different absorption rates. Have we studied this? Can we figure out what determines absorption rates? And is there stuff that speeds up absorption or inhibits absorption?
Yeah, so absorption, basically in the best world, like we can actually measure it. We can do a lab test with using the isotopes, like special labeled carbohydrates, because carbohydrates are basically carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. And when carbohydrates are broken down, they come out as CO2 and water. And if you label the carbohydrates, like the carbon, for instance, is labeled, like has a special tag on it. And if you analyze the breath, the CO2 at breath, you can basically figure out how many of the carbohydrates you put in actually really came out. And you can measure the oxidation rates of ingested carbohydrates. This means that you basically were able to see how many were absorbed and then oxidized during exercise.
So how wide a variation are we seeing from what riders are able to absorb?
Oh, it's massive. Probably like we would be talking about 30 grams for like small females, relatively not super powerful ones, and we would go to basically the ceiling, and I'm talking, about glucose only, so only one component of carbohydrates during exercise, all the way to probably 90 grams of glucose per hour. So we would have a range of, when you add glucose and fructose, from like recommended intake of like 50 to probably 170, 180 grams.
And what's the limiting factors here, like gastric emptying, intestinal absorption?
Gastric emptying doesn't seem to be the limiting factor, at least that's what the evidence kind of points at. Seems that it's either the absorption and perhaps even the muscle or like the body, how it deals with carbohydrates. But at the moment, like intestinal absorption seems to be the biggest limitation in most scenarios.
And is it trainable?
Good question. Nobody has actually done a proper study looking into this. We have some studies from rodents, putting them on a low carbohydrate diet and a high carbohydrate diet and seeing what happens to the transporters. And the evidence is not really strong for glucose, but it's pretty strong for fructose that you can, or like there is some evidence that fructose can be trained, or the number of transporters can be increased, and this would actually make sense because athletes would be exposed to glucose all the time, because glucose we find in like pasta, rice, potatoes, but fructose we only find in like probably sweet products, and there are many riders or many people that don't eat a lot of sweets, so they are not exposed to fructose on a daily basis as much there for glucose. So fructose is like probably big variation between individuals.
When you hear some of the riders, like I chat to some of the gravel guys from the Lifetime Grand Prix and Racing Unbound, and I think Cameron Jones, who won Unbound this year, was telling me there was periods where he hit 200 grams of carbohydrates. And actually your rider who came second, I've forgotten his name, who's Tudor lad who came second?
Sorry, this is bad, I don't know, but
yeah. I don't know either, I can't remember his name, but yeah, he ran out of food. But my question was more around Cameron Jones, where he's like, if he's having 200 grams of carbohydrates per hour without understanding his absorption rates, like, is there a downside to this? Can you back up the system?
Yeah, so clearly he has a tolerance to basically have all these carbohydrates. Even they are not absorbed, they're probably sitting in the gut and they're ready to be absorbed. When either at the end of the race or perhaps during the descent, the absorption might actually go up. So he might actually be absorbing higher amounts. So this is kind of one of the things. And the second one is, yes, there are actually, I think, at least 3 papers out there that show that if you go like really high with carbohydrate intake during exercise, well above the capacity to absorb, you can actually increase the use of muscle glycogen, which is the reverse of what you actually want to achieve.
Roadman, whether you're a weekend warrior or a world tour rider, the right tools can make all the difference. Enter 4i's Precision 3 Plus Powermeter, the latest innovation from 4i, designed to help you reach peak performance. The Precision 3 Plus Powermeter is a compact yet powerful unit. It weighs just 9 grams and it's packed with features that set it apart, including integration with Apple's Find My network, giving you the peace of mind by letting you track your power meter wherever it is. Plus, you've got up to 800 hours of battery life. We all know that accuracy is key, and 4i's delivers a groundbreaking plus or minus 1% accuracy thanks to their unique 3D strain gauge technology. For those seeking even more data, the Precision 3 Plus Pro Power Meter offers dual-sided power meter metrics, giving you detailed insights into pedaling efficiency, torque effectiveness, and left-right balance. 4i's offers versatile product options to suit your needs. Choose from ride-ready power meters with pre-installed units on Shimano cranks, or up for factory-installed power meter, where you send in your crankset for a custom installation. Ready to elevate your cycling game? Trust 4i's Precision 3 Plus Power Meter. Precision, performance, and peace of mind all in one. Learn more by visiting 4iiii.com. That's 4iiii.com. I'm going to put that in the description down below.